Every weird fetish?
Formicophilia. It's a Sunday afternoon and you're lying in a park feeling all cute when a grasshopper suddenly decides to take a scenic stroll up your arm. Now, most people would swat it away faster than you can say pest control, but for someone with formicophilia, this tiny invader is not an annoyance.
Would you fuck an insect?
It's a VIP guest delivering a special thrill. Yes, formicophilia is a fetish where individuals are aroused at the sensation of insects crawling on their skin. To them, the sensation of an insect on their skin isn't a creepy crawly.
Okay.
You're at a random frat party sipping your drink when a stranger walks up to you from nowhere and starts talking. You're initially trying to brush him off and walk away until he mentions that he just got released from prison for unaliving someone. Now, the normal reaction to hearing this would probably be to walk away because the red flags are pretty glaring, right? But, well, for someone with hybristophilia, aka the Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, that's the highest level of attraction.
Damn.
Basically, hybristophilia is a psychological phenomenon where individuals feel attracted to people who've committed crimes. The term comes from the Greek word
it's specifically
hubris,
crime,
which
not
means
just killing?
outrage, and philia, which is fondness. So in essence, similar joy when their partner lets one rip. Vorarophilia. Vor. At its core,
Wait a minute, go back?
liking a funny fart joke. We're talking about a genuine, heartfelt, or perhaps a lung-felt attraction to the sound, smell, or sensation of flatulence. Just as some people find the smell of fresh-baked cookies comforting, proctophiles feel a similar joy when their partner lets one rip. Vorarophilia. Vor. At its core, vorarophilia is all about a fetish where people are aroused by the idea of consuming someone or being consumed.
Oh.
Think of it like the adult-rated version of Little Red Riding Hood, where the wolf gets a little too into character. Now, for this fetish, there are two main sides, which are the predators, the ones doing the eating, often imagining themselves as dominant or powerful, as well as the prey, the guys who fantasize about
It's
being
like that
devoured
German
because they
German
see it
guy
as
who ate
submissive,
someone's dick,
intimate, or even
and the guy was in on
comforting.
it.
However, you should note that most vor fantasies are pure imagination or roleplay, and because the internet has made it more visible. Forniphilia. So your friend invited you to a
Yeah, would you
sleek
fuck a
modern art
couch?
exhibit, and you see a gorgeous chair in the corner. But as you get closer, you realize it's not just a chair, but an actual person crouched, posed, and
Wait, it's
painted
Harrison.
to resemble the real deal. Now, while most visitors are left gawking in confusion, you find yourself oddly intrigued and actually flustered because the thought of a human serving as furniture stirs something deep within you. In simple terms, you have a fetish called forniphilia, also known as human furniture fetishism. You to find a new stuffed teddy, you finally gave in and walked into the toy store. And as soon as your eyes landed on the giant fluffy teddy bear, you know it's definitely coming home with you. And not because you want to give it to your niece. It's actually because you have a weird
Chat,
fetish
would you
called
fuck a teddy bear?
autopsychophilia, so you derive excitement and sexual arousal from imagining yourself as a stuffed animal. Yep, you heard that right. While most people see a teddy and think cuddly friend, you see a plushie and get turned on by the idea of becoming one. Autoplushophilia is a subset of objectophilia, which is an attraction to inanimate objects and closely related to roleplay or transformation fetishes. Feelings of security and nostalgia. I
Trying to
mean,
go fast
who
as
wouldn't
long
want to
video.
live their best life as a snuggly teddy bear free from adult worries? Balloon fetishism, lunars. If you were to walk into a room filled with beautiful blown-up balloons, you'd probably try to pop some or even play and bounce them around. However, for a lunar, these balloons are more than just inflatable decor. They are the centerpiece of a highly specific and deeply personal form of attraction
Balloon
known
guy.
as balloon fetishism, a paraphilia where balloons are a source of sexual arousal, emotional connection, or both.
What the fuck?
Nasophilia. Yes, nasophilia or nose fetishism is exactly what it sounds like, an attraction to
Average
noses.
juicer.
Basically, for people with nasophilia, noses aren't just functional breathing apparatuses or sneeze factories. They're objects of beauty, sensuality, or even desire. The curve, the nostrils, the symmetry or asymmetry, the little tiny hair follicles inside, and the two tiny holes are absolutely captivating. Now, at its core, nasophilia is a form of partialism, meaning the focus of sexual attraction is on a specific body part, in this case, the nose. It could be the shape, size, or texture of the
That's
nose,
a
or
schnauzer.
even specific actions like sniffing, sneezing, or flaring nostrils that evoke desire. Some even have specific preferences. Some nasophiles might prefer sharp, angular noses, while others are drawn to round, bulbous ones. Large noses might exude power and confidence, while small noses can appear
Yeah,
delicate.
this is a great video. It proves there's someone out there for everyone.
and cute. And let's not forget nostrils. Yes, even those
Damn,
have
look at
their
those.
admirers. For these guys, a nose isn't just a nose, but it's a work of art. Well, like many fetishes, a fascination in adulthood. Oculolinctus, also known as worming in some circles, is a paraphilia that involves deriving sexual arousal or pleasure from licking eyeballs or having your eyeball licked.
The
Yes,
fuck?
it's exactly what it sounds like. No metaphors here. This fetish normally involves two people who experience the sensation in their own way. For the person doing the licking, there's the slippery, wet texture of the eye, and for the one being licked, it's the unusual, ticklish, and slightly invasive feeling of a tongue sliding
Slightly invasive?
across one of the most sensitive parts of the body. Now, as with most fetishes, oculolinctus has psychological and sensory underpinnings that make it appealing to certain individuals. First of all, there's the whole issue of trust and
Man,
intimacy.
I wonder how you like find out that you like this. It's gonna be so bizarre. Some of these fetishes, like you do it the first time, you're like, wait, why did I love getting my tongue licked?
Let's face it, letting someone lick your eyeball takes a lot of trust. Eyes are incredibly delicate, and the act of licking one requires a level of vulnerability that can deepen emotional and physical connections between partners. Also, your eyes are packed with nerve endings, and this makes it an incredibly sensitive area, so the unusual sensation of a tongue on their eyeball can be stimulating and even pleasurable. But pavement feels like lava and It's a scorching hot day. The sun's blazing, the pavement feels like lava, and everyone's wearing as little clothes as socially acceptable. You walk into a bar dying for a cold beer, but just as you spot a frosty mug calling your name, someone nearby lifts their arms to stretch, revealing their armpits, and bam, your heart skips a beat. You're not sure why, but
Armpit
suddenly
guy.
the air is thick with attraction and an unshakable chemistry. Well, here's the why. You have a fetish called
Well, that's what you even see in Twitch chat. You see people that have fucking anime characters showing their armpits and stuff.
Mashalenia, also known as the armpit fetish. For most people, armpits are like that one quiet kid in school, barely noticed, rarely talked about, and definitely not the center of attention. But for someone with mashalenia, armpits are the headliners of the show, the main act in the theater of desire. Basically, this fetish is when someone finds armpits irresistibly attractive and can involve all sorts of armpit appreciation, from admiring their smooth appearance to enjoying their scent to touching, kissing,
Smooth appearance? What if they're unshaved though?
or even licking the area. For those with this fetish, the armpit is
Ew.
like a hidden treasure chest of sensuality. It's soft, delicate, and let's face it, kind of mysterious. What's even weirder than having an armpit fetish is that it may not be as crazy as it sounds. You see, your armpits are loaded with sweat glands, particularly apocrine glands, which release pheromones, those sneaky little chemical signals that can trigger attraction on a subconscious level. That musky natural scent that some people wrinkle their noses at, for others, it's like a love potion straight out of Harry Potter. It's
Harry
primal,
Potter?
it's raw, it's biology doing its thing.
We should watch Perfume for movie night.
There's also the fact that your armpit is like the satin sheet of the human body because the skin there is extremely soft and sensitive, which makes it incredibly stimulating. Basically, if the body were a road trip, the armpits would be one of those hidden scenic routes nobody talks about. But once you discover it, you'll be wondering why you never tried it before. Dacrophilia. Let's say you're watching a deeply emotional movie and one of the characters breaks down in tears, and while everyone else in the room is grabbing tissues and saying, "How sad,"
You're sitting there jerking your shit.
thinking about how pleasurable the sound of them wailing actually is. If that sounds familiar, you might be exploring the world of dacrophilia, which is a fetish where arousal is linked to tears, crying, or emotional
So sad.
vulnerability. It's not necessarily about causing tears, though for some it can be, but more about the emotional
Well, that's really messed up. If you're attracted to making people cry.
intensity and vulnerability that crying represents. So basically, people with dacrophilia might be drawn to the physical act of crying itself, like tears rolling down cheeks, quivering lips, or red, puffy eyes. Some are attracted to the emotional release that crying symbolizes, such as pain, sadness, or catharsis, while others just love the power dynamic involved, especially if one person is comforting or in control of the crying partner. However, for some people, it's really not about sadness or suffering in a malicious sense. Rather, it's about the intimacy of experiencing someone's raw, unfiltered emotions. But
Dude, this is the partner that Fan needs to find.
Weirdest part is that sometimes dacrophilia isn't even always about the other person. Some dacrophiles enjoy crying themselves and find release and arousal in their own emotional vulnerability. They might even deliberately trigger their own emotions
Use the tears
or
as
indulge
lube.
in self-reflection to make themselves cry. Cremastistophilia. So you just came back from the club and were walking down a dark alley when someone suddenly comes out of nowhere and tries to mug you. Now, most people would feel a mix of fear, anger, and panic. But for someone with cremastistophilia, that moment of being
Wait, no,
robbed
this is pay pigs. Findom.
or coerced would spark something entirely different: arousal. Yes, you heard that right. Arousal. In a nutshell,
This is the kind of viewer that I need.
cremastistophilia is a paraphilia where individuals derive sexual excitement or gratification from situations where they are being robbed, extorted, or otherwise financially or materially exploited. This fetish basically falls into the category of masochistic kinks, where pleasure is derived from being on the receiving end of certain forms of control, humiliation, or submission, and it thrives on the thrill of power imbalance, danger, and the emotional intensity of such scenarios. And while it might sound like the setup for a bizarre crime thriller, for some, it's a very real and specific source of arousal. Sometimes individuals
There was a
would
guy
even
many years ago now. There was some dude that randomly DM'd me and wanted me to use a remote access tool to take his Bitcoin.
something called findom,
I
where
didn't
they
do it.
willingly give money, gifts, or financial control to a dominant partner. You should probably note that the attraction isn't necessarily about losing money
Do it.
itself. I mean, no one's
Morning thing,
thrilled
guys.
about an empty wallet. Instead, it's about the emotional and psychological dynamics of the situation, the sense of vulnerability, the rush of adrenaline, and the control exerted by another person can create an intoxicating mix of fear and arousal. But crematistophilia, like any fetish, requires clear communication and consent, so even exploring this kink with a partner through roleplay or findom can be safe and enjoyable when both parties are on the same page. However, indulging in this fetish outside of a consensual setting can be dangerous or even illegal.
And
Symphorophilia.
expensive.
Just imagine leaving your house one morning to go on a jog and unfortunately witnessing a car crash. Your instant reaction would most probably be to quickly call 911 and offer help and sympathy
Instead?
to the people involved. However, for a person with symphorophilia, that crash isn't just a spectacle, it's an intense source of arousal. So, with symphorophilia, the person gets sexually aroused
Bro.
from witnessing or staging
Imagine being in a car crash, you just see some guy jerking his shit.
disasters such as car crashes, fires, or other destructive events. Now understand that for these guys, the destruction itself is the turn on. It's not just about watching something fall apart, it's about the dramatic high-stakes nature of the event, the emotional intensity, the adrenaline rush, and the spectacle of it all combined to create a potent source of arousal. Also, this fetish can also manifest in different ways depending on the individual's
Subway now.
preferences and experiences. Some might find arousal in merely witnessing disasters, while others might feel compelled to create or stage destructive events to heighten their excitement. So where does this come from? Well, psychologists
Where
think
does
it
it
might
go?
start early on. Maybe a childhood experience involving a dramatic moment like a car crash, a house fire, or a major disaster. That mix of fear, adrenaline, and
fire
excitement
in the
might stick
UK.
around and, over time, morph into something a little spicier. It's like their brain took a wild ride on the emotional roller coaster and decided to recreate the event, but in a
Blanco.
sexier way. In a strange way, symphorophilia isn't so alien. Humans are obsessed with destruction. Why do you think demolition videos have millions of views?
True.
Or why do we all slow down at accidents despite swearing we're better than that? Symphorophiles just
Seeing things get destroyed is one, but it's much more satisfying to see things being perfectly put together, though. No?
crank that curiosity up to 11. It's like regular people watching things fall apart for fun, except with symphorophiles, the fall apart is fueling their sexual arousal. And no judgment here either,
Yep.
because the same way some people like watching buildings implode, others are into a good rom-com. To each their own.
There's a best of internet daily dotes. There's the new unusual memes. This thing looks insane.